Fantasy Football Factory Week 4. We've got actually Ohio's Tate subbing in for Minty this week. We got Moody, myself, Stephen Cheah. We are brought to you by DraftKings. Want to up your game day experience? My partners at DraftKings have a brand new way to play daily fantasy sports with a Pick 6 app. All new customers who play just $5 are going to get $50 in Pick 6 credits. Download the DraftKings Pick 6 app now. Sign up using code FACTORY, FACTORY, only on the DraftKings Pick 6. The crown is yours. Super easy. You just pick 2 players and choose if they'll have more or less of a stat. It's like, will they have more or less than 28.5 receiving yards, more or less than half an interception thrown? Lock them in and compete against others for a huge shot at cash prizes. Download the DraftKings Pick 6 app now using code FACTORY, only on the DraftKings Pick 6 app. The crown is yours. Tate, welcome on, man. We've been talking fantasy for quite a bit. This is a great opportunity for you to talk about it. And you said you had a big history in DFS, so welcome on the show, brother.
Yeah, I'm very excited to have gotten the invite here. I've been a season-long player, since we were kids, and calling in our lineups and everything. But in 2013, I would say early entrant into the DFS world. My very first entry, I remember I was in college. I played DraftKings NBA, and my first night, I had no idea what I was doing. Had a huge overtime game, and won a trip to Panama City. So when you do that on your first night, like, you're hooked for life. So I would say to the point where nowadays, like, I still like season long, I guess, but I really do live for the DFS version. I've had a couple big hits. I'm in a group chat with a couple people that have had some big hits, so I'm excited to be included today.
You were in were you in a golf one recently with a bunch of buddies? That was like a pretty heavy investment with several.
Yeah, we shout out to my buddy Hayden. He's the one. He has hit big in NFL a couple times, to the point where we were at a wedding last year and he hit for $100,000. And he canceled his flight home and took his own private jet. So that's how he celebrated that win, the 45-minute flight from Chicago to Cleveland. But yeah, he had a big idea. He's a golf guy, and he had our little syndicate together making golf lineups the other day. Wasn't as advantageous as he once said it was going to be, but we're having a good football season. I'll say that. Nice.
We're looking forward to hearing your insights. We're also going to talk a bunch of fantasy stuff. I think the lead is going to be just overall injuries. I mean, Christian McCaffrey, we talked about last week. More updates on, almost the unanimous 1-1 pick. Going to Germany to seek additional medical. I mean, Kobe did this back in the day with, the blood spinners in the knees to kind of get things going. This is a bad sign. People that drafted Christian McCaffrey, hopefully they handcuff with Jordan Mason. But if not, like, their season is in rough shape, most likely.
Mm-hmm. I'm in that for a season long. I went 1-1, went McCaffrey, and did not get my handcuffs. So sitting at 0-3 right now. Doesn't say much for my resume, but what is going to Germany? So he's looking for a different opinion or better advice, or
seeing if they can kind of speed up his return. I mean, we've seen this in the NBA, not only with Kobe. I think maybe Jason Tatum or somebody went over there. Maybe it was Durant, but this is an alternative. Like, if they're not getting in the States, they're going to try and go elsewhere to get the medical care they need. I think it was Ryan Whitney. He had a clip on Bussin' this week that said Whitney's oddly plugged in because he just plays golf with a bunch of rich dudes, and he's obviously a former rich pro athlete himself. So he hears some odd things, and he said he heard Christian McCaffrey is going to retire fairly soon. Not necessarily this year, but don't be surprised when you hear Christian McCaffrey is retiring, I would say, in the next year or two, which is kind of an interesting thing. We have no idea how soon he's going to get back on the field. If he's going to make it back for, weeks 1 through 4 through 14, is he going to be back for the next 10 weeks to make any type of difference for anyone that has drafted him? And I guess my question to both of you guys is, maybe I'll start with Moody. If there is, an owner like Tate who drafted him 1-1 overall, is he a potential trade target now at a basement price?
I would say this: if you're a 3-0 team, going after someone like a Christian McCaffrey makes a lot of sense right now. I wouldn't give up a ton of capital for him, but I think Tate would be happy with a starting caliber running back at the moment if you're in the cellar at 0-3. The best case scenario for Christian McCaffrey from a fantasy standpoint is you get him back for like 5 to 6 weeks, and those 5 or 6 weeks are the playoffs, and you happen to be around then. So if I was, 3-0 at the moment, maybe I send Brian Robinson Jr. I mean, somebody that has some kind of viability from week to week right now, because you're getting absolutely nothing out of Christian McCaffrey. And I think the best case scenario is you have him in the playoffs. But Tate, right now, you're in a situation where things are dire.
Yeah, he hit the nail on the head. I mean, I'm in the situation where if this continues and it extends longer than those weeks 1 through 4, it doesn't matter if he comes back for those last 5 weeks. I'm out of contention, and it doesn't matter if I have him for the playoffs.
Yep.
So I would say I am, as an owner that has him and needs a win, or else it's just a waste of a season, I am willing to listen to offers for Brian Robinson, people like that could help me now to maybe get into some sort of contention.
Brian Robinson Jr. for Christian McCaffrey straight up in week 4 is just
sounds crazy, right?
The worst of times.
It is, but what are you going to do if I'm without my one?
No, I'm not disagreeing with you.
Way back, it's dire times, and Moody's right. If you are fortunate enough to be off to a 3-0 start, throw some sort of package together and get Christian McCaffrey, and then all of a sudden you're just hoping that he comes back at some point, and you've got the best player in fantasy football.
Yeah. Moody, I know you were beating the drum for Isaiah Pacheco preseason. He obviously, unfortunate ankle injury. What are you hearing prognosis-wise, and how are you pressing the panic button?
So Andy Reid yesterday, or a couple days ago now, coming out saying that he doesn't know if they're going to get Pacheco back this season or next season. That is not what you want to hear right now as a fantasy manager. Again, the best case scenario for Pacheco now sounds like a possible playoff push. We're definitely not getting him for the next 6 to 8. And as someone who built their keeper and dynasty leagues around Pacheco, Nakua, Tua, and I've got Nick Chubb as well. Like, I am just fortunately, I'm 2-1 in both leagues. I'm surviving somehow. But I mean, I'm in a spot where my bench has just all injured dudes. My entire bench is just full of IR guys. So I'm worried about Pacheco for sure. Steele looked pretty good if you were fortunate enough to grab Steele with your fab or a top waiver spot. He looks good enough. I don't think he's Pacheco caliber, but he does look good enough to be viable for the next couple weeks. It's tough right now for a lot of fantasy managers, especially if you happen to have a lot of those guys and people like Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle. They have taken big hits, and he was my number 1 receiver in a couple of my leagues, Tyreek Hill. So I'm in a spot where even though he's on the field, he's suddenly just a wide receiver 2, it feels like, because of the quarterback play.
Yeah, I'm interested to see what happens with Tyler Huntley. Like, assuming Tyler Huntley takes over on Monday, we got 2 Monday night games again. Does he improve the stock? Because he was like serviceable in Baltimore. I mean, the guy technically made a Pro Bowl. Yes, he was like the millionth alternate, but still made the Pro Bowl, was a serviceable player. Tyler Huntley, potentially like a super flex guy, like off of waivers. I'm sure he was going for big money in those type of leagues. Let's talk about just like alternative solutions here. So obviously Pacheco out, McCaffrey out. We've seen a bunch of other guys go down. Are any other backup situations standing out to you guys? I know that you guys asked me pre-show about Bucky Irving. I would assume, this is airing on Thursday. I'm assuming in most leagues he's gone already. He is an interesting runner. Todd Bowles said it in his press conference on Monday. Bucky Irving has earned more snaps. I believe he only played 18 snaps on Sunday against Denver. He's a good runner. If the game gets out of hand script-wise, Rachaad White is a much better receiver and pass blocker, so he's going to be in the game. They have started running some stuff where they're both on the field together. They ran a couple very cool handoffs where it looked like a handoff to White, and then it was a handoff to Irving, and he kind of scooted out the back door. I think he's serviceable. I don't know if he's going to be a season-long guy you're going to want to plug in, but I think right now he's like RB2. I expect him to get between 8 and 14 carries a game, maybe a catch or two. I think Rachaad White is a little bit more dependable as far as week-to-week fantasy because he's going to get most of the goal line carries. He can catch the ball. He's going to be on third downs, and he should get about the same amount of carries. So I think Bucky Irvin is an okay option if you're desperate. Kansas City has some very interesting options. So Carson Steele looked pretty good, only one catch, but did well on the ground. But they just activated Kareem Hunt. Tate, are you seeing anything on that front, or where do you prefer in that back?
Yeah, I mean he's on the active roster now. I would say that Carson Steele. Pardon?
He was good for you guys.
Yeah, he was really good for us, and I would like him right now with our offenses look terrible and Chubb's on the IR. So, no, I would be very interested to see how they progress with Kareem Hunt. He catches the ball out of the backfield. He can run the ball, obviously. He's someone that I would like to think if they get him up to speed, he would probably pass Carson Steele at some point. But something to keep an eye on. Not obviously nothing huge right now, but in a season-long league, he's definitely worth having on your bench.
Yeah. Moody, what about you? Are there any backup situations that you are eyeing?
I will say I have pieces of that Kansas City backfield, and it just kind of scares me adding Kareem Hunt in. I would personally rather him stay out because Samaje Perine he's definitely the third down back. He's done a great job in pass protection. He's good at catching the football. And so he's viable in PPR. Carson Steele is viable right now. But now you throw Kareem Hunt into the mix, and it's like, are they all going to cut into each other just a little bit and knock their value down enough for them to not be playable? I can understand the upside on all three of those guys being a starter right now, but none of them I don't feel very comfortable with any of them. Alexander Madison happened to be available for me in one of my leagues. I pulled the trigger there. He's been okay. He only got 6 touches this week, but he did get into the end zone. They've been using him as the primary pass catching back. So a little bit of value there, not something that I love. He burned me last week, but I expect him to get a lot of carries this week, is Donta Foreman, because Jerome Ford has looked okay. But here's the thing with Cleveland. They have to run the damn football. The only game they've won this season, they ran the ball somewhat efficiently. I think Donta Foreman has to be a part of this. He was a non-factor last week. I mean, a flat-out non-factor. And if I expect them to run the ball more, this is a deep play. He could absolutely throw up 0.5 points, though, as well.
What are you giggling about so much, Cheah?
So I started Donta Foreman last week, and it was awful. I hate that guy. He had 14 carries 2 weeks ago, and it's like I was hearing some noise from people, someone in the know, that they're really high on him. And I know he doesn't have like long-term upside because Nick Chubb is coming back and all that stuff. But I was expecting some type of workload in a game that, you know, they were favored by, I think,
they were touchdown favorites at home, in which that's a perfect spot.
Okay. So touchdown favorites at home, you know, against another bad team. I was expecting some type of volume, 14 carries for 42 yards. The week before, I was expecting something in that range. Maybe he gets a touchdown. I think it was 2 carries for 5 yards. Is that right? Horrible.
Yeah, it made no sense. I don't trust one person on the Browns offense right now. Moody's right that if we ran the ball, that'd be great to have someone there. What are you going to say, Amari Cooper?
3rd in the league in targets, 29 targets. I mean, his quarterback can't hit him, but he's throwing it his way.
He made his touchdown. Did you see the stat that his touchdown on the first play for the offense was like the lowest percentage completion of the week? It was like out of the clouds. So I don't know. I don't trust Deshaun to get the ball to our guys right now.
So one thing that I look for in fantasy is consistency. And Amari Cooper, from a production standpoint, right now has not given that through 3 weeks. I will say he has had at least 8 targets in every game. That's something.
That's meaningful.
I think that Amari Cooper is – I don't even think you can call him a buy low target right now because he's coming off a great game. Right. But he's a guy that I would absolutely try and hawk for like a wide receiver 3 if you can get him for a reasonable price.
Yeah, that's fair. I guess, and you're talking a lot of season-long stuff here.
Yes.
I'm talking like on the daily fantasy side. I don't have the trust to roster a Cleveland Brown right now.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. A couple guys we have seen stand out, especially in that Giants-Browns game, are rookies. We saw it Monday night with Jaden Daniels, but then the game we're talking about, Malik Neighbors, who leads the league in targets, 37 targets through 3 weeks. His last 2 weeks, 18 targets, 10 catches, 127 yards and a touchdown. Last week, 12 targets, 8 catches, 78 yards, 2 touchdowns. He also had 2 carries. What do you guys think of these rookies? And is Malik Neighbors a top 5 fantasy wide receiver right now?
Malik Neighbors is so good that he makes Daniel Jones almost look not bad. I don't know if y'all watched that game. I'm sure you did, Tate. There was multiple times there should have been an interception, or the touchdown that he had in the corner of the end zone was sensational. The ball was thrown over his head. He lays out. He gets the toes in. Brilliant. There was another catch that he had on the sideline that should have been an interception. It was underthrown, and he goes and just takes it over the top of a defender. Malik Neighbors is a stud. If you want to call it, he's right there in that top 5 to 7 range. I've got no problem putting him there based on his pure talent. The only thing that worries me is Daniel Jones. Like, truly, Malik Neighbors saved Daniel Jones from the same narrative that we've been seeing the last couple of weeks, because he missed multiple passes in that game. He had open receiver, an open tight end in the end zone, threw it out of the back of the end zone. Like, Daniel Jones is not good. But Malik Neighbors, that kid's a stud.
100%. I mean, what Malik Neighbors did on Sunday was sensational. And the only thing that you can knock him for is his quarterback, which is obviously a huge factor into his production. But Cheah said it right. He leads the league in targets. How could he not be a top 5 receiver right now if he's scoring touchdowns, getting the football, and catching the football?
Would you guys rather have, and let's use a season-long lens with this, would you guys rather have, from the receiver position, Malik Neighbors or Tyreek Hill?
I think I'd take Malik Neighbors right now.
Yep. What about you, Cheah?
This is tough because the arrow is firmly pointed up on one, and I don't want to say firmly because we're going to see a quarterback change, but it doesn't look good for Tyreek Hill. Malik Neighbors right now in half-point PPR is wide receiver 1, 57 points. Wide receiver 2, I can give you guys an hour. I don't think you're going to get it.
Like Jawan Jennings or something crazy.
Yes, it is Jawan Jennings.
Yeah. I had him in my dynasty league. I've had him stashed for like 3 years just as a guy. He finally, this is the first week I've ever played him, and he saved my ass. I mean, I was desperate, and Jawan Jennings won me the league by like 40 points this week. It was amazing.
I'm very interested to see this Malik Neighbors arc, because this production, I don't want to say it's not sustainable, but 120 something yards and a touchdown, 80 something yards and 2 touchdowns, like that is, again, with Daniel Jones as a quarterback. Let's see Daniel Jones versus Tyler Huntley, and then maybe Tua coming back. Like Tyreek Hill, if Tua comes back, is going to be a top guy once again. So it's hard not to say Neighbors though right now. So I'm interested in that. Quarterback wise, Jaden Daniels, what has he shown you guys? Is he enough to be a QB1 you're comfortable rolling out regardless of matchup?
I think so. I mean, obviously dominated, Monday night, but his game log, having 10 plus double-digit rushes in all 3 of his games so far. He's a dual threat quarterback that, they've shown it muddies up the Commanders, running back game, because at any point Jaden Daniels could be the one who takes it in for the touchdown. So I feel very comfortable trotting him out there in fantasy football right now.
I was heavy on Jaden Daniels as we were talking about the pod coming into the season. I have him as my quarterback in 2 of my leagues, and I've been thrilled with it so far. And he's a competent passer. I mean, he looked really good throwing the football. We see with a guy like Anthony Richardson, you're drafting him solely because of what he can do on the ground. He's not looked very good in the passing game. Jaden Daniels is actually, especially week to week right now, he seems like he's starting to figure it out. He looks so much more comfortable, so much more poised this past week. And so I have no problem with Jaden Daniels. I'm loving him. In my keeper league, everybody right now is trying to trade me for him. Like, they want a piece of Jaden Daniels. And I'm telling them him and Jonathan Taylor are the 2 that are off limits for me. So I love Jaden Daniels, and I mean I expect him to get even better from a passing standpoint as the season goes forward, just because he's going to be more comfortable back there, and they'll start to figure out what he does and doesn't do well at the NFL level.
In 4-point passing touchdown leagues in which he will be more valuable due to the rushing, he is QB2 right now.
Yep.
All right, let's talk some daily fantasy coming up for week 4. So we will all be in the Pardon My Take AWL league, $5 entry, $1,000 top prize. Let's kind of go through the values. We've been doing this with Mints every week, and I think this is valuable. So this is just going to be the Sunday slate. not including Sunday Night Football. So everything from the, I don't want to say morning games, but the early slate and the afternoon slate. Tate, and Moody, is there anyone that stands out to you quarterback-wise? Tate, let's start with you. Starts top of the market. Jalen Hurts, 7,200. Patrick Mahomes, 7,100. CJ Stroud, 7,000. And we see a bit of a drop after that. Kyler Murray, 68. Joe Burrow, 66. Then everybody kind of falls in line. Bottom of the market here is looks like $5,000. You can get Jacoby Brissett or Drake May. Taylor Heineke also $5,000. Is there anyone that really stands out to you from the quarterback position?
Yeah. Well, first of all, with Jalen Hurts being at the top of the market, I don't think he can be a play this week when Devontae Smith and AJ Brown both might be out. So he's a no play for me. I think the number one far and away play of the week is Kyler Murray. 6,800, 32nd ranked defense he's going up against, 9 touchdowns given up passing wise, the highest point total. And I think what I really like about him this week also is Trey McBride might be out, which allows you to stack Kyler. You can stack Marvin Harrison Jr., and you may be able to get another really cheap tight end in there and have a high point total stack that's not the most expensive.
Okay. I like that. Moody, is there anyone that stands out to you quarterback-wise?
So we're now 3 weeks into the season, and we know who the terrible defenses are. We know who the bad secondaries are. So there's 3 guys that stand out to me the most. First is Kyler Murray, because how bad the Washington secondary is. I mean, I do think Kyler is the best play this week. I agree with you there. Also like Jaden Daniels in this game, just based on I believe it's going to be high scoring. How could you not like what you've seen from Jaden Daniels? And here's a guy that I think is the sleeper or the best value coming into this week. It is Caleb Williams. I'm not a Caleb Williams fan by any means. I don't think he's that great, but I think against a bad Rams secondary and a bad Rams defense, this is a spot where I'm willing to play Caleb Williams. Right now, he's coming in at $5,600. You're able to save $1,200 versus what you're going to put in for a Kyler Murray or a Jaden Daniels. So you save a little bit of money there. And I just think you have a quarterback that's going up against a bad defense. That's really how I would look at it versus the talent that Caleb Williams has. But he looked better last week. Threw the ball a ton. I mean, hit 52 attempts. So they're showing that they are willing to use him if they have to. And Rome Odunze looked better this week. He finally caught fire. Cole Kmet was used. So I think the Bears figured out a little bit who they are. And I expect Caleb Williams to slowly but surely get better. And this could be a big week for him against a beat-up Rams defense.
Yep. I think those are absolutely fair recommendations. I like Kyler a lot. Another one that I would point at, Jaden Daniels, obviously, same game. That total is 50.5. The next highest point total is 47.5. And that's one I would point to. Joe Burrow, $6,600. You do get the bonus, the 3-point bonus for 300-yard passing days. I think he is a decent value in a bounce back spot. I think they're going to beat the brakes off Carolina. It's a 4.5-point spread for Cincinnati. They're going into Carolina. Carolina is riding high after a big, big win in Las Vegas with Bengals old quarterback Andy Dalton in a potential revenge spot here. But he obviously played very well. I don't think there's any way they can continue that type of momentum. So I think Cincinnati's going to beat the brakes off them. I think Joe Burrow is going to be the guy just because their running game with Zach Moss and Chase Brown leaves a lot to be desired.
Yeah, I like the play of Burrow. He's throwing the ball 35 times a game right now. My only hesitation with him this week, I do think they beat the brakes off the Panthers. At what point is this Bengals team going to play with a lead? It might be this week for the first time. And that could affect him in the longevity of the game. But I'm with you. He should have a very good game.
Yep. All right, cool. Yeah, 324 passing yards last week, so he would have hit that bonus for you. All right, let's move on to the running back market. Who do you guys see out of the running backs that stands out to you? Top of the market is going to be Saquon, $8,000. Breece Hall, $7,800. Jonathan Taylor, who you mentioned, $7,700. Kamara, $76. Bijan, $74. Kind of goes down after that. We get all the way down to like the $4,000 range are playable guys. So who stands out to you guys as either guys you're definitely going to have on your team, or maybe guys that are a little bit undervalued?
Yeah, there's 3 that I'm really targeting this week. I don't think I'm going to pay up in this week for Saquon, even though he's been a monster, and I understand why you would, or Breece Hall. I like Brian Robinson, 45 carries through 3 games. Obviously, if Eckler's out, he should get more targets. Jaden might get the touchdowns, but like we said with the quarterbacks, that total is 50.5. I really like Brian Robinson for 6,100. Hubbard for the Panthers. Is that what the Panthers are going to look like now that it's the Andy Dalton Panthers instead of, the Bryce Young Panthers? He's only 5,700, 21 rushes, 114 yards. The total is also 48.5. And then finally, Aaron Jones, revenge game. Vikings, Packers, monster game last week, 102 yards, 5 catches, touchdown. Those are all around the 6,000, 5,700 mark. And I think if you go mid-tier with them, and if you want to go cheap quarterback, like Moody said with Caleb, I think receivers are where you can feast this week. So I'm going mid-tier this week.
Nice. Moody, who do you like this week?
My favorite guy is probably Kyren Williams against Chicago. Chicago's shown that they're giving up points right now to running backs. And if you're the Rams, he's your most dependable piece on offense. Matt Stafford has shown confidence in him in the passing game. They always give him the goal line touches. So at $7,300, I will more than likely have Kyren Williams in my lineup. And then I'm on Brian Robinson Jr. at 6,100 if Eckler is out. If you're telling me I could get a guy that's going to have a workhorse workload for a high-scoring game, I will take that. And your hope is that this is the game where they run the football in with a running back versus Jaden Daniels. So I think you could look at this 2 ways. You could fade Jaden Daniels rushing touchdowns and take Brian Robinson Jr., or you could take Jaden Daniels as your quarterback and then maybe stay away from Brian Robinson or pair him up. It's a little more difficult doing that with running backs and quarterbacks. So I like Brian Robinson Jr. I'm probably going to go Kyler and then Brian Robinson Jr. Those are 2 pieces that I like in that game. And that's if Eckler's out. Eckler must be out in order for me to want Robinson in my lineup.
Yeah, for sure. So Eckler had a concussion on Monday night.
Not his first one in his career, by the way.
Not his first one. And he exited the game, and typically with concussion, you're going to go to the medical tent and you're going to be cleared. He went back to the locker room, which tells you it's a bit more serious. He was ruled out fairly quickly. So this, it may not be just like a one game thing with that game being Monday. This could be something that lingers a little bit, and he is a little bit older player. One guy I'd look at, and he is expensive, is Breece Hall, $7,800. He's going against the Denver Broncos. The Broncos obviously beat the brakes off of my Buccaneers, but I do like the Jets. After a long, they have what we call the mini bye. They played on Thursday night. $7,800, so he is very expensive. But he scored a touchdown in every game this season. He's gotten at least 5 targets in every game, at least 4 catches in every game, and his carries have been good, between 14 and 16 every game. Braylon Allen is certainly an interesting play, and you could do that at value. But Denver showed some feistiness. I don't think the Jets passing game has not looked great the first couple weeks of the season. I know last week they kind of took the air out of the ball with that game being, whatever it was, 24-3 or something like that. But Breece Hall, I think, is going to be a guy who's going to get the workload. He's going to get carries around the goal, and he's going to catch the ball. And with Patrick Surtain, the second following around Garrett Wilson, I would expect this to be a more running back dependent game. So I think he is actually worth the premium this week, even though it is expensive, $7,800.
Denver has actually been very good against the pass, and they have not been, they've been middle of the road against the run, but very good so far in the secondary.
Yeah. What do you guys think about Carson Steele this week? $5,500 in a game against the Chargers, low point total. I believe it's 39. But are we worried about Kareem Hunt taking over right away?
I don't know about taking over necessarily, but possibly cutting into his workload just enough where you're like, damn, why did I spend $5,500 on Carson Steele? I think that could be where you're at. He looked good. What do you have, 12 for 72 or 15 for 72? He definitely looked good out there, caught a couple balls. This is going to be a lower scoring game. The Chargers are running the football. They're being very efficient on offense. They're trying to slow these games down. Their defense has played well. So I don't see Kansas City lighting it up out there for 40 points this week. And because of that, I'm probably fading this game just a little bit.
Gotcha. All right, let's move on to the receivers market. Starts off Justin Jefferson, $8,700. He's been so good this year against Green Bay. The next most expensive guy, and I'm not going to talk about Cooper Kupp because he's going to be out. AJ Brown's questionable, $7,800. But Jamar Chase is the next most expensive, $1,000 cheaper than Jefferson at $7,700. Marvin Harrison Jr. in after that, $7,500. Any guys stand out to you guys specifically?
Yeah, I think Jamar Chase and Marvin Harrison Jr. will be extremely highly owned in these big tournaments with good reason. Chase is coming off a huge performance on Monday night. They both have huge point totals. The Panthers defense has given up 7 pass touchdowns. The Commanders have given up 9 pass touchdowns. So I like those plays. Like, I can't steer either way, like, to tell you not to take them. I would lean towards Marvin Harrison. If you're going to stack him with Kyler Murray, I think that's a good way to start your lineup. The one play I'll give out, though, is if everyone's going to go that way in that high point total range or high price total, I like Devontae Adams against Cleveland this week. I know that, so Minshew is going to be their quarterback. I don't love that, but I think the whole world is going to be on Jamar Chase this week. And I think, let me say this, the Browns stink. The Browns pass defense, our corner, we're no good. And this, I like Devontae Adams as an alternative play to maybe if Chase doesn't have a great game and you have Adams, then you can skyrocket up a leaderboard.
Yeah. I like that. Moody, what are you seeing on your end from the receiver market?
Yeah, I do agree with everything Tate just said. My alternate play would be this: Michael Wilson at wide receiver at 42.
He had a lot of targets last week.
He had 9 targets. He caught 8 balls. And you're in a situation like this, you're hoping that, hey, Michael Wilson's the one that catches the touchdowns this week. Marvin Harrison Jr. is going to get his target share. There's no doubt. But if you're telling me at $4,200 I can get 8 to 10 targets from a guy in a high-scoring game, I'll take that all day. And obviously, if you're going to end up winning this league, you're going to have to luck into Michael Wilson catching a couple touchdowns. But I don't think it's so much luck whenever you're getting 10 targets per game. So I do think he's viable, especially if Trey McBride is out. So at $4,200, he is my favorite wide receiver play of the week. And then at the top of the market, I'm actually going at $7,200 for Nico Collins against Jacksonville. We just watched Buffalo destroy them. Jacksonville's been getting the ball thrown all around the yard on them. Nico Collins is without question the number one guy there. Stephon Diggs, he's cutting into his work, the red zone targets. But Nico Collins is a home run threat. He is a great route runner, and I expect Houston to bounce back this week. I like Nico Collins at $7,200 as well.
Nice. I like that. A couple guys I will mention. I don't know. I have to dig into this game a little bit more. Bucks, Eagles, 44.5 point total. Mike Evans has had success against the Eagles. What stood out to me is that on Monday, Evans has not had a good season so far. Todd Bowles openly said, we need to get him more targets. So I think he's going to be involved early and often on this. He's $7,000. I wouldn't overreact to that, but just something to note. A couple of values that stood out. Yoshi from the Bengals, $4,100. If you're going to go with Burrow, I think he's a good stack option at $4,100. Jaden Reed, I think, is an interesting play, especially if Jordan Love plays. He's $6,000 or $6,000 of your budget. Minnesota Green Bay, I think, is going to be a frisky game. He's an interesting receiver. I'm going to throw out the game against the Colts because they just ran it a bajillion times because they couldn't stop him. But in the other 2 games, he had 6 targets in both games. He had 138 yards receiving in the first, 50 in the second, 4 catches in both. And in all 3 games this season, he's had at least 19 yards rushing. One of them has a touchdown. So I think Jaden Reed is an interesting play. If you're going to do this in the prop market, I would definitely look into rushing and receiving instead of just receiving because he is going to get those. But a couple more I mentioned that stood out to me. Al Lazard, $4,300 if we got Surtain on Garrett Wilson. Al Lazard does have that trust with Aaron Rodgers at $4,300 below cost. I think he's an interesting option. And then one more is going to be Darnell Mooney, $4,400. He's been really good. And they obviously have a very big game this week with the Saints at the Falcons after Arthur Blank was inducted into his own Ring of Honor, which will never not be hilarious. But in his past 2 games, 88 yards and a touchdown, and then 8 catches for 66 yards, 7 and 8 targets. So I think well under cost, $4,400. I think that there are a lot worse options you can go with.
One more I'd throw in real quick is Rome Odunze. Had
Okay.
11 targets. Was that where you were going?
That's what I was about to say.
Great minds think alike, brother. I mean, like 11 targets last week. This should be a high scoring game. That Rams defense is. It's just. I think they're very susceptible right now to wide receivers. So I'll give the floor to you, Tate.
Yeah, Moody's right. And if you do go cheap at quarterback with Caleb Williams, like he mentioned earlier, and you stack it with Odunze and they connect for a touchdown, you've saved a whole hell of a lot of money that you can spend up elsewhere. The other value play, like just talking targets wise, Deontay Johnson obviously had a big game last week, 14 targets, and he only cost 5,600. So maybe there's some value at receiver this week. Cheah, I liked a lot of the guys you mentioned as well, but 5,600, 5,200, maybe get a 4,200, and you save a lot of money to spend somewhere else.
Yep.
I do think this week that the value is in these receivers. Like I could understand going a little bit higher in the quarterback and running back markets. I feel like the value this week in particular is in the wide receiver market.
I feel like Caleb Williams is getting targets to everybody because let's move on to that tight end market. Cole Kmet, 11 targets, 10 catches, 97 yards, 1 touchdown. He is available for $4,400. The tight end market starts with Trey McBride, who is questionable, $6,000. Travis Kelce, who's been wildly disappointing in fantasy so far, $5,800. Brock Bowers, who has been a nice surprise at $5,600. And, this goes all the way down to, backup guys at $3,000. But is there anyone that stands out to you guys in the tight end market?
I mean, if Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown are both out this week and Dallas Goedert's 5,100, that's a pretty darn good play right there. That'd be tough to keep him out of your lineups. And then if Trey McBride is out, Elijah Higgins for the Cardinals, but he's already been priced up a little bit. He's not expensive. He's only 3,100, but I think they're almost pricing him at a point where it's like, hey, if McBride's out, we can't have this guy be dirt cheap. But I do like those plays. Bowers as well against the Browns is a good play.
Yep.
One guy I would look at this week is Kyle Pitts. Just because the Saints, the one place that they've been susceptible is against tight ends. That's the only people, like we saw what Goddard did last week. The Saints have had problems against tight ends. They've been very good everywhere else on the defense for the most part. So I would look at Kyle Pitts because he's at 4,800. If George Kittle is healthy, I might go George Kittle because of all the injuries that they have right now on offense. But I'll tell you what, tight end is a spot that I really don't know where I want to go this week. Like you could make a case for Cole Kmet. I could see a Zach Ertz for sure, but I don't feel comfortable necessarily with any of those guys. And I'll give it to you on that Zach Ertz comment.
Yeah, I like Ertz. I mean, revenge game spot. Zach Ertz going back to Arizona. He's been good, and multiple GMs have said that like a young quarterback's best friend is their tight end. And Zach Ertz, while is not the long-term solution in Washington, he's the short-term. If we're talking about daily fantasy, that's where you want to be. We talked about high point totals. This game is 50.5. He's priced right now at $4,000. And he's been very consistent, at least 4 targets in every game, averaging 4 catches a game, between 28 and 62 yards. So, I mean, he's not going to blow the doors off the market, but he's a guy who, if they get in the red zone, is absolutely going to be one of the preferred targets for Jaden Daniels if he chooses to throw the ball. And, with Jaden Daniels throwing his first touchdown pass the other night, the cork is off the bottle on this one. So with the point total being 50.5, I could see Ertz catching a touchdown, having some pretty good production.
Do either of you see any value in anything Travis Kelce related right now? Like he's the second highest. He has 8 catches, 69 yards, no touchdowns on the year. He's been awful. But what if Travis Kelce was Travis Kelce for a week and no one had him?
Mm-hmm. He has a good history against the Chargers. I mean, obviously different staff and all that. It's hard to buy in daily fantasy. It's very hard. So I think we could see a Travis Kelce emergence toward the back end of this year. I don't know if they're like he's coming off the field for a lot of plays. So like you have to be on the field. The best ability is available, and he's not on the field a lot. I think they're going to ramp that up towards the end of the season. I'm interested to see, and this is just an overall looming fantasy thing, what happens with Rashee Rice? Because if he does get suspended, which I guess they're waiting for the legal proceedings to happen. I mean, if that happened, if we knew all of that in August, He was going to play the whole year, he would have been a top 12, top 10 receiver that was drafted. He's obviously playing great right now, but especially if he goes out and they need, with Hollywood Brown out for the year, they're going to need people to throw the ball to.
Mm-hmm.
Who else is it going to be? Like, is Xavier Worthy going to be like a 9 target a game guy? Like, I can't picture that. So
Doesn't look like it.
I think there will be value in Travis Kelce, but probably after Halloween.
I think the only problem with Travis Kelce right now is spending $5,800 really hamstrings the rest of your lineup.
Yep.
You know, especially when these other guys are going for $4K, $4,500. Like that's a lot of money for a guy that's averaging 5 fantasy points per game right now. It's tough.
Yeah, I think you gotta not punt the position, but definitely look for value at tight. Like if the leading scorer of the week is going to get 18, 15 points, and you can get 9 out of someone that's 3,700. You do that, and then you spend elsewhere.
One guy I would throw in, if he comes back healthy, is Evan Ingram. It's your boy, Cheah.
Yep.
Like right now, they need a guy. It's insane, bro. And they just need him to get back on the field. He was the security blanket for Trevor Lawrence. And Trevor Lawrence has not looked very good without a security blanket out there. We don't even know if he's going to play. So this point made mean nothing. But I do think once he comes back, he's a guy we're going to have to start looking at from a PPR standpoint in fantasy.
All right. And then on the defense, special teams units, Moon, we'll start with you this time. Are there anybody that stand out to you? We got top of the market as the Niners playing the Pats at $3,800, 10-point spread in that game. It goes all the way down to $2,400 with the Panthers going against the Bengals.
My favorite play of the week here is going to be the Pittsburgh Steelers against the Indianapolis Colts. We've seen Anthony Richardson turn the football over. This Steelers defense is for real. I mean, they show up and they expect to play a game under 14 points, Yep. And so that's what you're looking for in daily fantasy and fantasy in general if you're playing a defense. So I think the Steelers are at the top of my market. You could make a case for, I could see the Saints having a good week against Atlanta potentially. But I think Pittsburgh right now is my favorite play. And Cleveland, maybe, Tate, would be one I would think about because of their pass rush. I expect their pass rush to be better than we've seen so far in the season.
Yeah, I definitely agree that I think the Steelers are going to be the highest owned player in all daily fantasy this week. I think their price point of $3,300 is not terrible. And I think that Anthony Richardson shows that he'll give you the ball. So Steelers are my number one play. If you're looking for money savers, the Bears low total at home against the Rams. The Texans play an awful Jaguars team, medium total, but they're heavy favorites. And they're only $3,000. And then I don't know if I have the balls to play them, but the Panthers are minimum priced at $2,400. And if you can save some money there and maybe Joe Burrow gives us one, I just know that, saving that $700 to $900 could really help you at the running back or receiver position.
Yeah, you touched on it, but the team that I think represents decent value is the Texans at $3,000. This game is at home, which they play much better at home. The one game they played this year at home, the 19-13 win over the Bears, where their defense was lights out. They're playing a Jaguars team who are on a short week and are reeling. Like, Jacksonville looks awful. And, maybe this is a flash in the pan, but they're 0-3 right now. Trevor Lawrence looks bad. Travis Etienne does not look good. Brian Thomas Jr. and Christian Kirk are kind of their only bright spots. Gabe Davis doesn't look great. Evan Ingram obviously injured. So they don't have a lot of weapons that scare me. So I think the Texans, even though it's a divisional game, are an interesting team because Trevor Lawrence is giving the ball away.
One more I would throw out is maybe the Denver Broncos. They're at $2,500. They're playing better defense than we realize. I mean, they really are. They're playing better defense than we realize, and the Jets are not scoring a ton of points. It's, again, if you're trying to save money, it saves you $800 versus going with Pittsburgh. I do think Pittsburgh is the optimal play here, but if you get desperate and you have to go for one of those bottom of the barrel teams, I don't hate the Broncos necessarily. They've turned the ball over. Their defense right now averaging 10.3 points per game. You compare that to the rest of the teams, and that's number 3 on the board, actually.
Yeah, I also kind of like the Chiefs going against what will likely be a hapless Chargers team. Jim Harbaugh is going to get his team to show up, but The Chargers looking at potentially starting Taylor Heineke against a very good Kansas City defense. Will be tough there at home.
Is Herbert not playing for sure? Is that guaranteed?
Not for sure yet, but things did not look good. Like their whole offensive line got hurt. Rashawn Slater got hurt. Joe Alt went out for a bit. So they're in a tough spot, and the Chiefs are $3,600. So if you have the budget, that's one I would consider. Tate, anything else stand out to you?
No, I just defense wise, I think you have to just go safe with the Steelers there. I think will be the general play.
Okay. And then let's wrap up on this. What is the one guy you're going to have on all of your DFS rosters for this week? Moody, I'll start with you.
It's going to be Michael Wilson for me at $4,200. I think we're talking value and targets here, right? A guy that's, I'm hoping, going to continue on the same line that we've seen the last couple of weeks. He's been a big part of this offense. I expect the Washington defense to be awful once again, and that's what I'm looking for, a guy that I can save money, get targets against a bad defense with good quarterback play. He checks all my boxes right now in the wide receiver, as far as the wide receiver is concerned. So I'm going Michael Wilson at $4,200 as my plant your flag play of the week.
All right, Tate, who you got?
My answer is if Austin Eckler is out,
okay,
Brian Robinson will be on all of my lineups. If Austin Eckler is out, I think you have to play Brian Robinson for $6,100. He's going to get the lion's share of everything, and he should get more targets as a receiver as well.
Okay. We obviously all talked about this. I'm going to go with Zach Ertz. I just think at that $4,000 price point represents great value. High point total, 50.5. Revenge game for him. Jaden Daniels looks to him fairly often, at least 4 targets in every game. So I like Zach Ertz this week, the highest scoring or the highest total right now for the Sunday slate.
I like it.
Okay, cool. This was a fun show. Tate, appreciate you hopping on to the Fantasy Football Factory. Moody, appreciate you getting involved as always. This has been good. We're presented by DraftKings. Again, use promo code FACTORY, FACTORY, when you download the app. And thank you guys. We'll see you next week.
All right, boys. Good luck this week.
Thanks, you too.